that our politics is broken, dysfunctional, and downright uncivil at times. And that is exactly the reason we invited Ohio Representatives Joyce Beatty and Steve Stivers to face the state this week. They are launching a movement to do better. Welcome. Thank you both.
Great to be here.
Thanks.
Let's begin on that topic of respect and civility. You are helping to launch that caucus with civility and respect. Representative Beatty, I'd like to begin with you. What's the goal, and where would you like to see that caucus 6 months, a year, 18 months down the road?
I think the goal for Steve and I are to set examples that you can disagree without being disagreeable. I think we also are very concerned about children and wanting to make sure that children understand that they can have hope, they can be a strong Democrat or a strong woman, and be able to sit with Republicans or men and discuss things and make effective change. We're also hoping at the more national level that we get other members of Congress to join and that we start this whole movement. And we're not the first to do this, but we've put plans to it. Visiting schools, talking with other members, and Steve working with Republicans, and I work with Democrats, and conversely, he'll work with some Democrats and I'll work with some Republicans. So I think our goals and objective is to be able to counter what we just saw on TV, but yet not change me as a Democrat or an African American or a female, because we will have lots of differences and lots of votes, but we don't have to make it mean-spirited.
What would you like to see as a goal here?
Joyce is exactly right. What we need to do is give some examples for our kids. I've got a 5-year-old son and an 8-year-old daughter, and I want to make sure they have an example to look up to in our government and in a system that shows our republic can still work, where you might not agree. In fact, civility doesn't matter when you agree. Civility only matters when you disagree. I've been in the military 34 years, risen to the rank of general because I understand how to pull teams together and get things done. That doesn't mean we agree on everything. It means we understand how to come together and work with each other.
Let's look at some polling. I looked at some polling going back to almost a decade, 2009. There was a Gallup poll that said this, that 1/3 of Americans said at that time that political civility was worse under President Obama. Fast forward to a few months ago, and a poll from NPR, and it's on the screen there, when 70% of respondents said that political civility is now worse under President Trump. Mr. Stivers, to you, is the president, the leader of your party, is he hurting or helping civility?
Well, you know, the president isn't always civil, it's true, but this effort to me is not about the president. It's not about any one person. It's about 300 million people in this country and trying to set the right examples and show people what can be done. The Central Ohio model that Joyce Beatty and I have used for 8 years now of disagreeing without being disagreeable and not vilifying each other is ready for the next level, and we're going to take it to the next level and spread it around the country. Pat Tiberi was a great member of that civility, and I'm sure whoever takes his seat, Republican or Democrat, will also share in that because we have those values here in Central Ohio. And but we're ready to take it national, and that's what this caucus is about. We've had 10 members of Congress join the caucus so far, half Republican, half Democrat, and they join in pairs, and they agree to in their markets, go out and visit schools and talk to civic groups to bring civility and the message of why civility is important to everyone. And it's not just in government, Scott. In our schools, there's cyberbullying going on. In our workplaces, there's bullying going on. And civility can actually help increase productivity at people's businesses if they'll listen to this. So we're excited about bringing this message to the country, Scott. And I'm proud to partner with Joyce. She's been a friend a long time. We don't always agree, but we always understand and respect each other and try to listen to each other's point of view, because that makes us better and smarter and gets us to better solutions.
I mentioned the president, and Democrats aren't innocent in this effort at times as well. Hillary Clinton during the campaign called some Trump supporters deplorables, and still today, whether it's at school or on Facebook, you'll hear some people say, well, she's a Trump supporter, she has to be a bigot. that is certainly not civil language and civil behavior.
Right. I think civility is important no matter what the level, whether it's students, whether it's members of Congress like us, or to your original question about the presidents. I think that they should be held to a higher standard, or the highest standing. And I don't care whether it's Hillary or President Obama or President Trump. They all, in my opinion, have a responsibility. Now, with that said, I think the people have spoken. You presented the percentages, and certainly President Obama or Hillary Clinton weren't flawless. But when you have a president and the percentages that high, I think that helps me be convinced that I need to be even more engaged in doing it. Because what Americans look at is they look at the Congress, and sometimes they don't know there's 3 different levels of government. They lump us all in together.
They do.
I don't want to be lumped in with a president who has 70% or says some of the most deplorable things, whether it's about women, whether it's about African nations or members of Congress. So I think that America should look to what Congressman Stivers and I are doing to build hope, and to say that we have an obligation and to be civil. But civility is not trying to change or influence the other person. It's about understanding, as Steve said, especially when you disagree, how you can do it and not be disagreeable. I also want to add something to that. I think you learn more about people when there's civility to the positive, versus when presidents or leaders are not civil. It makes me think less of them. It makes me not want to be in their presence, or to not agree with them at all. And you have to be careful, because as leaders, you also have to respond. My constituents call me all the time saying, how do you respond to a presidential's actions like that?
One of my best friends in Congress is Steve Scalise. Last summer, he was shot for being a Republican at a Republican baseball practice. Later last year, shortly after that, my family, I told you I've got a young son and a young daughter, my family, my kids and my wife and I were threatened to be killed by someone here locally. People are reacting with violence or threatening violence. Joyce and her family have been threatened. All that came together, along with other things I was seeing in Charlottesville, and Joyce and I talked about this through the fall, and we decided in the holiday season we had to take action. And so we're officially rolling this caucus out today, but it's something that we think we've been talking about for a while, and frankly, we've been living this civility model for 8 years since we've served together. And I know it works, and I know it can improve the country, and I know it'll change people's lives, and that's why Joyce and I are so involved and anxious to do this.
Well, let's do this. Let's take a short break, and then let's come back and talk about some policy and more politics and issues that certainly affect Ohioans. We're going to dive into some key national issues. We'll talk about the economy.